Hey, real quick before we start the podcast, if you have listened to more than one episode, can you do me a favor and rate and review the show? Now, I'm not big on asking for favors, but we really want to get this podcast listed in the top of all health and fitness podcasts, not just the fitness category. This will take you less than a minute, and if you could do that, that would make us friends forever. And since we refuse all sponsors on the show, this will be my only ask rather than telling you to go check out some supplement or product we don't actually believe in, like every other podcast out there. So please rate and review. Okay, that's it. To the podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here with Joe Courtney and Ashley Hicks. How's it going, all?
Pretty good.
It's warm here.
It's
not here.
Warm? Was that...
Yes, it's warm. Sorry.
Chilly and wet here.
Oh.
Yeah, it's whatever here. It's whatever Texas.
Yeah, but
feels
I saw
like.
I'm going to be in
San
Texas
Antonio.
in like 2 weeks, and I saw it's dropping off after about a week. I wish it was the 70s when I'm there, but it's going to be dropping down. Who knows?
Yeah, I've had some workouts where I'm like in shorts and a t-shirt, sweating outside, and then some where I've needed to put on a hoodie. So that's saying a lot. The hoodie in Texas is saying a lot. Well, let's get into it. Here's what we're doing today. We are going over protein. Finally, a kind of like a meta-analysis of protein intake as opposed to just these one-off studies. So I think it's really cool. And the question we're ultimately trying to answer in the study today is about how much protein should you be consuming? Because I think that's a hard thing for people to answer. And then even when you get into it, sometimes the recommendations are crazy high and people are like, how on earth do you do this? And so we'll kind of walk you through that, what the study says, and even how to calculate this, even though it's not rocket science math here. We will get into that. And I think it's really important. Protein's really important. We're also going to be covering Limitless by Chris Hemsworth, a new show that it's been painful. We've had to watch TV for work, going over this to review it. Because I really wanted to check it out. The concept is very intriguing. If you haven't watched it already, we'll kind of go over it just because we want to, not because Chris Hemsworth needs the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast to help promote his show. He's got plenty of that going for him already. If you don't know who Chris Hemsworth is, it's Thor. You can just call him. I will probably refer to him as Thor for the remainder of the episode. All right, let's get into it. So the name of the study, it's synergistic effect of increased total protein intake and strength training on muscle strength, a dose response meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. This one's pretty cool. So they looked at a lot of different studies, over 2,000 of them, and then they whittled it down to 82. Within the studies that they looked at, the protein intake ranged from 0.79 to 3.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. Let's see. They had, within the group of studies, there were 2,440 participants completing trials involving resistance training and 1,500 participants completing trials without resistance training component. And I think that that's something important to hit on in this study right at the beginning, is that they were really trying to answer not only like how much protein should you take, but if you're doing resistance training or not doing resistance training, what's the answer there? And then of the entire participant pool, 1,859 were female. So that's a huge show out for the females, and 2,073 were male. The age range is hilarious, 19 to 87. So the average comes out to 55.6. I honestly, for this type of study, I think it's great because it's kind of answering the question very, very broad based, but it's just, you don't normally see that. They're like 30 to 40 or whatever, not 19 to 87.
I also saw a breakdown where they referred to the younger group of anybody before under 60.
Yeah, because of the age range. This is anyone under 60 is in the young population. So ultimately, what was the purpose of the study? They were seeking to clarify the detailed dose-response relationship between protein supplementation and muscle strength with and without resistance training. The researchers hypothesized the effect of total protein intake on muscle strength is exerted in a dose-response manner, regardless of the presence or absence of resistance training. Which I thought was a bold hypothesis. They're basically saying we don't think that increase in increase in resistance training matters with protein intake.
Oh, I
Um,
actually wrote down the hypothesis too that it was kind of an interesting, different hypothesis than you might see normally,
yeah.
and that they even compared the two.
All right. So I think that's it for the base of the study. I do think it's funny because when someone goes into a lifting program or you start lifting weights or you're trying to gain muscle, everyone just knows protein is important. Like, yeah, you got to eat some more protein, but no one really knows how much and to what effect that actually means. There are all these recommendations out there. We've talked about this over the years, how I've always felt that some of the recommendations were a bit ridiculous because sometimes when you get into the bodybuilding world and they're doing these cuts, they have these excessive levels of protein that they recommend, which might help when you are a professional bodybuilder and trying to lean out to get on stage. But somehow that information gets watered down to whatever, like Men's Health Fitness Magazine, and then to the average consumer, which I don't think is helpful when you're, I've seen people do like 2 to 2.5 grams per pound, not kilogram, per pound of body weight recommendations. So
Mhm.
let's just say I was close to 200 pounds. We're talking about close to 400 grams of protein a day. It's just getting so stupid, I think, when people do those kind of things and have those kind of recommendations. So it's nice to have the science back us up here a little bit on what the intake should be. And we'll kind of have our coaches take on this as well. Um, but I'm not going to get into the specific numbers yet. I just want to hear what you guys think of the thought of the study for this one in general.
It was really good to look at because I mean we talk about protein all the time and making sure everybody gets enough. Whether it's protein and water challenge or like the first thing that you might want to macro wise look at is protein, and then it's like okay, well how much? And most of the data is pointed at higher. But people are always talking about the higher numbers, and we kind of put them down a little bit, but this one brings us down even more. So overall, I think it was great to see that number and that line to see how results are like it's almost like a couple weeks ago when we talked about strength endurance. It's like okay, we found the line at 25 reps. After that you don't need to do more. Your results are still going to be the same. That's kind of how this protein worked as that. Okay, the best results almost is like here's the line that you should shoot for. Anything above that is still good, but the difference might be very very small and or none at all. So you really should just focus on this lower line first. The Some of the things that I was thinking about, like the biggest factors to me in a lot of these studies that I don't think any of them took into account of, and I think it would matter for what you're doing, your goals, or how you're eating is are your other macros, like how many carbs are people having with on these protein protocols, to where like okay, maybe you should have more protein if you are on a much lower carb protocol or going for leaning versus if you're just going for performance and you have more carbs, maybe you don't need quite as much protein. So like the line might skew a little bit there depending on what the other macros are, which weren't really taken into account. But this protein line is such a low line, and in general we're guesstimating anyway. So like even if you're like okay, I have to get exactly 155 grams of protein today, it's like well you're really guesstimating what your lean mass is and then timesing that by 1.5 1.8 whatever, and it's still a guesstimation range. So this just says as long as you hit this number, this line, anything over you're fine as long as you get that. So and you don't need to overshoot and get a whole bunch of protein because it might just be wasted. So as long as you're getting this amount of line, anything else, it's like okay, if you want to, if your guesstimation might be off, then you have a little bit of leeway. So that's all. That's another thing that I thought was a something to think about or takeaway in general for this. But it was very good, and it gives sort of a hard guidance on what we can tell people.
And let me
Ashley.
jump in right there for you talked about that line a few times. So I just want to just go ahead and let that cat out of the bag. So the study concluded it was 1.5 grams per kilogram per day uh, of protein for people who are lifting, and around 1.3 grams per kilogram a day for people who aren't lifting. And so doing that quick math, I'm about 85 kilos. And so that comes out to being roughly 130 grams, slightly less, 130 grams of protein per day, which I agree that's a low line, but that is the line that you're talking about, Joe. So everyone else listening to this, you can do some quick math. If you're in the US, you're going to have to probably do the calculation to kilograms first. So make sure you do that, pounds to kilograms, your body weight, and then just multiply that by 1.5. And you kind of have like a new baseline. But Ashley, what were your thoughts about the study?
I liked that not only was there a great show for females, but we were talking about the age thing earlier. And I think what's important is that even when you are older, protein definitely matters.
Yeah.
Now, when they went back to the results, obviously the strength numbers in the elderly group, if you will, was not as impressive. Speaking of aging, unfortunately, I think it's just with the time that is passing. Obviously, protein is not going to be as effective as it would be when you are younger and when you are, strength training. Obviously, the protein for the strength training group, there was strength gains. It wasn't that big of a difference. It was like
3 or something. Yeah.
3% or 1.4%. Right. But at the end of the day, protein is important. And I feel like that this is what this is hitting on. But maybe I was saying to the guys earlier, it might be a little bit less than what I have thought, what a lot of people have thought, because as Jerred just shared, before I got pregnant, I was about 68 kilos. So that would be anywhere from 88 grams of protein to 100 grams of protein a day. And I was eating darn near close to 140 grams of protein a day. So it's definitely a lot less than what I've been tracking. And it also makes me think of, well, maybe, if you are looking at a macro plan because you're trying to cut or because you are trying to bulk or get stronger or more muscle growth, whatever your reasoning being, maybe it's not quite as much as just what you said, Jerred. Like we have kind of gone towards more protein, the better. And I always hear, especially from female clients, I can't eat that much protein. I can't hit that, I get that a ton. So this is kind of cool showing you like, well, maybe it's a little bit less, but then it also exactly what Joe was saying makes me think of, well, when you are doing like a macro nutrient thing, and granted, I'm going a little bit away from protein, so excuse me, but then, how do you adjust your carbs and your fat? And then I think, again, you have to look at what your goals are there. But I still think protein should be the number one thing that you look at first before you start adjusting. Jerred.
Yeah, I agree completely. So one of the blurbs from the study was for lifters, strength gains increased by 0.72% for every 0.1 grams per kilogram per day increase in protein, up to 1.5 grams per kilogram per day. So that's where it plateaued. And so that's kind of where they landed on that number, because strength gains weren't necessarily increasing past that point. But what we're not talking about is hypertrophy.
Right.
So hypertrophy could very well take more protein, and that's not necessarily what they were looking at. And then also, if you're like, when strength tends to plateau anyway, like you're going to plateau at strength at some point. So is protein really a factor anymore after you've kind of plateaued in strength? I don't think so. Can it be holding you back? Absolutely. So if you're not consuming enough protein and you're not getting stronger, or you're not growing more muscle, it's probably a protein issue. But then once you start to plateau and the protein's there, it could just be a change in training that's necessary. And again, going back to hypertrophy, they didn't cover that as much, but I'm sure if you're trying to pack on as much muscle as possible, I would think that you want to go up from this recommendation a little bit. But I like that the baseline is low, because for me, what did I say? Is like we're around 130 grams of protein a day is a very manageable number for me. That's like, 2 good meals. And then if I had a protein shake or something that day, like I'm probably at 130 already or close to it. So that's not hard. So that should make everyone feel pretty comfortable there. Where this does get convoluted and should be mentioned is we typically in the past have always calculated protein based off of lean body tissue. so fat-free mass, because if you are, if you have a fairly low body fat percentage and I tell you numbers to work with, that's fine. But if, say, you want to lose 100 pounds, say you currently weigh 300 and you want to be 200, I think these kind of mathematical equations get really silly, because say you're 400 pounds. I don't think that you should just be taking 400 pounds, converting it to kilograms, and then multiplying that by 1.5. So I do think that there's another asterisk in here that they didn't mention at all, that you should be calculating it off your fat-free mass at some point. And that's where I don't really know where that determination matters, because it just sounds like healthy people who are lifting probably within normal body parameters, like normal BMI. Sure, 1.5 grams per kilogram per day. But if you're obese or significantly overweight, what should you be doing? And I do think that's where you're going to want to take into, like, okay, how much muscle mass do I actually have? And let's multiply. Let's do at least 1.5 grams per kilogram of my muscle mass. And so that's just another thing to factor in if you're trying to pass this information on to someone else, or you yourself listening to this podcast are overweight. It's not all a 1-for-1. And they didn't have that kind of recommendation in here either. So I think that those things are very important to tease out and something that you should know. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good study. It was a massive study, and we have covered protein multiple times. To be honest, this is about where the recommendation is. We tend to go slightly higher than this, but not by much, because the higher recommendations are probably like 2.5 grams per kilogram. They said some studies were doing, what did I say, 3.5? Yeah,
3.1, I thought.
3.8. It went up to
gosh.
3.8. Some of the studies did 3.8 grams per kilogram, which is just crazy. So I would say if you're in that 1.5 grams to 2, even 2.2, something like that, you're probably fine. I know when I get anywhere close to going to 1 pound or 1 gram per pound, so like 185 pounds, 185 grams, that's where things start to get challenging for me. It's actually very hard if I'm not super on top of it. Like, I have to be super on top of my protein and be thinking about it most of the day to get 185. But 130 to 150, which is probably where I land most days, not that big of a deal.
Yeah, I think I usually be right around 150, and Jerry, we're about the same size. I have a little bit less lean mass, but still, yeah. And it was not too hard, but yeah, lowering that line a little bit to the 130s or whatever is definitely would make a difference, especially if you're counting macros, because protein can be one of the harder macros to get, especially the later you go on in a day, because it's hard to get something that's just purely protein. Something else will either have carbs or fat in it, and if you're already
Take a
good on
breath.
fat,
Belly
yeah,
meat.
yeah, well,
I've done it.
They have fat, right?
It depends, and it depends on like the sort. Like if you're getting like Oscar Mayer, like crap brand,
Yeah.
then you're also going to get sugar with it too. But you typically, if you can get like a good source
Yeah.
deli meat, it's
Certain whitefish though had a crap ton of protein. bang
oh
for buck. I
yeah,
remember
like
that.
halibut
And fat, yeah.
Cod, yeah.
Mhm.
But like for people who want to, either they're measuring or calorie wise, this could be great news for you, or whether it's taking your protein number down some or even adding it up a little bit, because you're still going to benefit from it, but like caloric wise could balance out from other, like we were saying, carbs, fats, whatever you might be working toward.
And I really do think that your body tells you in its own way when you're doing something you shouldn't be doing.
Yes.
And I would really love to talk to a scientist about this. Like, if you're consuming like vitamin C, like, your body has a tolerance level for vitamin C. And one of the theories behind it, I'm stepping away from science right now, just theories, is that if I fed you a gram of vitamin C every 30 minutes, all day, every 30 minutes, 1 gram vitamin C, because it's water soluble, and it wouldn't be dangerous, right? And so I feed you a gram every 30 minutes. And the theory is, if your body needs the vitamin C, you're going to have no issues. Your body, you'll just keep going until you reach this like upper limit of tolerance. Then you're going to start having stomach issues. And so if that happens to you at 2 grams, you didn't need that much vitamin C. If that happens to you at 34 grams of vitamin C, then your body may have needed it. Again, that's just a theory, but I feel like that's true in a lot of these kind of things, like macronutrients. Like if your stomach's going to tell you if you're consuming too much protein. Like I think when you have the protein farts, if you will,
I was gonna say, I think it's a bit farther down the line when that it will tell
you're
you.
yeah, you already know, right? Like I think I don't think that's some sort of adjustment period. I think it comes from one of two things. Either you're supplementing too much protein, because I've probably had over 200 grams of protein in a day from meat, and there's no issues. Like I'm not like farting every like 5 seconds. I've had too many protein shakes in a day, and it's been an issue. And so I really think a lot of that has to do with supplementation and not necessarily the macronutrient itself. So be mindful of that as well. Like don't supplement all your protein. Try to get as much from whole food as you possibly can.
Yeah, always remember deployments I've been on, the bus commuting to and from work. Plenty of gym bros, the military gym bros that were on the 2 grams per body weight,
No.
drinking casein protein shakes before they go to bed and waking up and having another shake. And the bus rides were horrendous because they're just let it loose. And, it just kind
Real
of
talk.
happens. Yeah.
Or what's the pre-workout they all used to take? We used to call it NO Explode
No
because it would
Explode.
make
No Explode. Yeah. No Explode was one, and then Jacked 3D was the next one. And then
I could do
they
a whole
just kept on
podcast
getting
on Jack 3D. Just
yeah,
light
that
me
was
up.
that was the real stuff.
Yeah. You
Oh,
kids
no.
can't get that these days.
It's like
Not the real formula.
it's like the Vengeance for Loco.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up protein. Really good study. We'll have a link to the show notes if you guys want to check it out yourselves. Overall takeaway, go get at least 1.5 grams per kilograms a day of protein, and you'll be good to go. That's at least a baseline that you should be setting. But let's get into Limitless. I'm actually going to play a video, Chris Hemsworth talking about the video or this new series himself. So I don't have to explain it. It's about 2 minutes long. So we'll let this roll and then we'll come back.
Now, I may be in pretty decent shape. Sure, I may look like an immortal Norse god, etc. Stop it. But I know the clock is already ticking. I'm teaming up with the world's leading longevity experts. Taking on 6 of the toughest tests of my life. Pushing myself to the very limit. I want to discover how we can all unlock the secrets of living a healthier, longer life.
Oh, good luck with that.
I think I've lost my mind.
Yeah.
You're going to have to navigate through the outback using only your brain.
I want you to go 4 days without food to do a reboot on your system. It's gonna be a shock to the body, I'm not gonna lie.
It's training your mindset to embrace the stress so that it doesn't kill us later.
Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?
What's making you nervous?
Oh, death is usually a
Death
big
is
one, yeah.
It's a retirement village made just for you.
All right. How hard can that be?
Breathe in.
It's a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
If your face tells me that you're done, you're done.
I'm outside of my comfort zone further than I've ever been. What scares me is not being able to play with my grandkids, be active, all the things I love to do.
There's certain battles we're just not gonna win.
Guess I'd better keep at it.
Let's go!
It's a battle against what time can do to us. So here goes.
All right. Hopefully that was helpful, even without seeing it for our podcast listeners. I won't shy away from the fact that I really enjoyed this series, Limitless. We're going to kind of do a review of it. We're each going to kind of give like our 2 favorite things, 2 things that we didn't like as much about the show, but I'll just ultimately say I think it was awesome, really well put together, and ultimately I'm really happy that this kind of stuff is making it to the mainstream. You know, that a lot of this was on the fringes and not talked about as much, and that's how it goes, right? Like it takes a long time, And when we're in the health and fitness industry, a lot of these things are commonplace for us, and we're frustrated that the world's not doing it, but it just takes time. It might take 10 years or whatever for itself to work into the mainstream. And the fact that a Marvel character is putting it on Disney Plus, with National Geographic, I was actually just really happy about. And so I think that it's really cool overall. Those are my big thoughts on it. But let's get into we'll do one thing we liked and one thing we didn't like. And we'll do that twice. So, Joe, give me one thing that you liked about it. What was your number 2 thing that you liked about it? Not your top. Don't give me your top yet.
I don't know which one would be top or
No, you don't have an order.
bottom.
Okay.
So I'll go with the visuals. As they were talking about stuff, they would usually, whenever they would like whatever expert's talking to Chris about it, they run through it, and it might seem like, okay, they're running through it. The doctor's telling Chris about what's going on. They're having dialogue, and then they would break to like this visuals of like these graphics and diagrams and like of whether it's the human body or parts of it, and Chris is narrating what's happening, and they show visuals of it, and as they're showing visuals and telling you about it, he also like says like a metaphor or two with it, and I think that really helps paint a picture, because not only is he explaining it again in different ways, but you're seeing how it's working. And so I think that was really good to kind of hone in on what each episode and each challenge thing that what he was doing to get to know it.
I think I didn't put that in my notes, but I think I can agree with you more. I watched all this entire series with my kids, and I think those little like cutaways to those graphics with the explanations were really helpful. And at least my 2 boys, Eleanor's probably not quite old enough to even know what it was going on necessarily, but the boys at least they'd be talking about zombie cells or something like that. And then they're like, what the hell are they talking about? And then they kind of show it, and that would help them better understand it. So I think that was awesome. Ashley, what was one of your top things that you liked about it?
Well, Joel stole mine, so I got to pivot, but it's cool.
Well, you had to have 2 anyway, so
Yeah, for sure. No, and I agree with Joe about like the metaphors, because it always makes me think of have you guys seen The Big Short? Have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
And they put like Margot Robbie in a bathtub to like explain financial stuff. I feel like when you can put it in like something where everybody can understand.
Bathtub.
Go watch The Big Short.
Big Short.
Big Short. It's actually a really great movie. Anyways, I loved that they did that. But going on, I'm gonna say I'm just gonna pick a person like Ross Edgley was in this.
Mhm.
And obviously we did his book for one of our podcasts.
What was
for
his
one of our
book called
topics.
again?
Art of
The
Resilience.
Art of Resilience.
Art of Resilience. Yeah,
He has
really
a
good
second book too, which came out like the year before that. It was like the
Blueprint.
I just got it.
It's called something Blueprint. I own it, but yeah.
The World's Fittest Book.
Oh, he has 3
He has one
books.
called
Then,
The World's
'cause
Fittest Book. Yeah.
I own another
The
one from
Blueprint,
him that's called
yeah.
something Blueprint.
Anyway, sorry.
No, you're fine. I really liked him. There were certain coaches on different episodes that I didn't quite jive with, that I don't think if I was working with them, I would just be like, I don't know. He seemed very less frou-frou-y is what I said. He was very direct, straight to the point, very motivational. I would love to train with him. Like, I feel like it would be a blast, but also like he could probably find ways to motivate just about anybody to get you into that mindset. So
Yeah.
I really liked watching that.
My boys are obviously really impressed with Chris Hemsworth in general. And so when their episode with Chris and Ross in the same episode, and they're like, Chris would take his shirt off or whatever, they're like, wow. And then I was like, you just wait. Just wait till Ross takes off his shirt. And they're like, no way. Because throughout all the episodes, he's wearing like these like really baggy hoodies or like whatever. You can never tell that he's muscular. But then there are a few shots of him like with his shirt off, and they were like, holy crap. Like, how do you even look like
His
that?
biceps the size of my head. Yes.
And not my obsession with Ross's body. It's more that I think when you have put in that much work,
Yes.
like that's the kind of coaching approach you can take, because you've been there, done that, and you're not having to rely on like, no, intellectually, I understand this. Like, no, I freaking understand it because I did it, and I think that makes a great coach a lot of times. I'll say mine. Well, we're starting with number 2, right? Number 2. Okay. So I won't go to my top 8. I guess it's similar to yours as well. It would the experts in general. So I love that Ross was on there. I'm a huge Peter Attia fan. I really like him. And yeah, there were somebody I did not like the stress lady. But I'm not trying to get into like my negatives necessarily, but I wasn't a huge fan of her. That was episode 1. So if you're kind of like not jiving on that first episode, make it past the first one. If you decide to watch this series. So yeah, I think the experts were awesome and very well placed. So let's go with one thing that we didn't like. Something you didn't like, Joe.
I don't want to take. You want to go first on this one, Ashley? I don't want to take yours.
Ashley, you go first.
Yeah.
I said certain aspects were a little too extreme in my personal opinion, because to me it made it look like you have to be a celebrity or famous rich person to be able to test this kind of stuff out. When in actuality, if you listen to our podcast, you can do a lot of this stuff on your own, and I get why they did it. I know why they did it. It had to be for TV and also entertainment purposes as well. But I would have liked to have seen stress done a little differently versus walking across like that crazy high tall building, or taking someone to Sweden to swim in the Nordic Sea, stuff like that. I do agree with you that I'm so glad that they put this kind of stuff on there, but I just feel like it was a little too dramatized for me.
And I didn't even think it was that great, so I don't want to spoil anything, but they do have him walk across a crane like that over a very high distance on top of a building. But for me, maybe because I'm not scared of heights, if I'm buckled in, I'm good. Like I don't care. Like you can dangle me over whatever you want, so long as I know I'm secure. So like to me, that didn't seem like that'd be that stressful of an event.
I will say, as a first episode, that was a weak episode because
they started with the worst one, in my opinion. Yeah.
I think he was a little bit too comfortable. It could have been easily he was acting like he wasn't that afraid of walking across because he was strapped down, and because like halfway through he's like doing kicks and stuff on it, and it's like, well,
yeah,
all right,
he kind of gives himself away by doing all that. He's like
then he looks down, and then his heart rate spikes. Like that's exactly what would happen. I would have to look forward. If I look down,
Joe, what didn't you like? One thing.
I mean, I was going to kind of say the same thing, that how dramatic it was. They did try to inject a lot of drama into it. They had a lot of this little side stories that I didn't really care that much about. I'm not sure some people would like, but this could be I don't really know. It's kind of just related to the extremes of what Ashley said. At the beginning of a couple episodes, like if I don't do this, then I'm at risk for diabetes and heart disease, and diabetes and heart disease. And it was just like each episode was kind of like that, to where I guess to a certain extent, yes. And then even just how they were shooting this just from a visual standpoint, how they were shooting whenever they would talk, it was just like really close, dramatic lighting. Like it doesn't need to be this dramatic. We're talking about how to improve your life, how to do these other things. It's not like you are literally trying to escape death right now. You're just preparing yourself to. So I think the tone of those cuts was a bit off. Like I understand you need some drama, especially nowadays, but I don't think they should have done it to that degree. So that was probably my main bad. And just some of the other extra stuff I didn't really connect with.
So one of the things I didn't like, this is very specific. It bothered me. That stress episode when she was talking about box breathing. Okay.
Triangle breathing.
Yeah. So
I watched that and I didn't find that part, but
it's in there. She does it twice. She does it 2 separate times, maybe 3. She talks about box breathing and she explains it like it's a box. Okay. So box breathing is, I'm going to do it, and I'm on camera too. You inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Ooh. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I just did a full box. She didn't fully understand why they call it box breathing, but she knew what box breathing was. And so I don't know how she did it wrong, but it was something like, I think she just would leave her finger there. She would say, inhale, hold,
Mm-hmm.
exhale, hold. And she did this 2 or 3 separate times. I'm like, you drew 3 lines. It's not a box. I know it's a small thing, but it bothered me because you either need to catch it or have her redo it, whatever, because it wasn't a box. And it's called box breathing for a reason. If you've heard of box breathing, you didn't know why it was called box breathing. That's why, because there are 4 parts to it and it makes a box. That's it. So a very tiny thing, not a real reason not to watch the show, but when you watch it now, you can't unsee it, and you'll understand. All right, so let's go to our favorite thing. What was our favorite thing? Or no, let's go back to back. Bad.
Ooh.
We'll end with our favorite, and on a good note. So I'll go back to you, Ashley. What was another thing you did not like about the show?
I don't know. Okay, so I'm looking at my note and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I said,
I'm really pushing you guys here. That means you probably liked it quite a bit.
I did like it quite a bit. I said again, I kind of already hit on it, but I said certain aspects were a little intense for me. But that also highlighted to me, maybe I need to start pushing myself outside of my comfort zone.
There you go.
For example, if you tied my hands behind my back and tied my feet and threw me in a pool, my heart was pounding the entire time we were watching that.
That was probably the worst thing on the entire show. Like I could not.
You know what's funny? My brother and I both wanted to be Navy SEALs when we were, I don't know, middle school, early high school.
Mhm.
We would do that in our swimming pool to each other with no parental supervision. Like the things that we did and how we're still alive is just insane to me.
This
But
explains so much, Jerred Moon.
Do you think about this? The fact that you have 2 boys now too, like.
Yeah, I think about it all the time.
Keep that in mind.
Well, yeah. Sometimes I'm like wondering, hey, when you guys gonna start pushing the envelope here? Come on.
Oh gosh, yeah. No, there were certain parts of that where I was like, he's gonna pass out. Why are they pulling him out of the pool? Why are they pulling him out of the pool? And Scott's like, calm down. It's Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, they're not gonna let Thor die.
Yeah.
They did a really good job shooting it because I didn't see anybody in the pool with him.
No, I know no one was in the pool with him. And then the whole rope climb thing, I don't know. Again, I was just like, why are they dangling it from this cab car? Like, again, it's very minor, but I didn't realize that the longer that it dangles, that you're actually dealing with the weight of the rope too.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. I was like, oh, wow. So that makes it so much more tough, I guess. So again, very minor, but
Yeah.
Joe.
Some of the challenges felt a bit scripted. Like I think especially the first 2 or 3 episodes, it was like, okay, in 3 days I'm gonna do this. And then I liked the training up into that, but then when it came to the thing, it was almost like on cue halfway through, they were like, oh, hey, he stops and he can't continue, and like then he has an epiphany thinking back to the training that he just got earlier in the episode, and then he gets through it. Like that was a little bit too scripted to me, which again that kind of ties in with the drama, but still it was a little too much. But I think in the later episodes, I think it's gotten a little bit better. Going through like some of the memory things and whatnot, it was like, okay, you just kind of focuses on what's going on. There wasn't like a dire down moment, and then he pulled through from something the doctor said a couple of days ago.
Yeah. I mean, just kind of hitting on that, then I'll go to my second thing I didn't like. But part of me, when I was like watching it, I mean, Chris Hemsworth is in amazing shape and has been for a long time. And I was like, there's no way you didn't already know some of these things. Like, there's no way
What I said. Yeah.
you've been in the health and fitness area for as long as you have. You own your own fitness app and all this crap, and you don't know about fasting, or you don't know about, cold exposure. Like, there's no way. There's just no way. So I know some of it was just like, whatever, but it's fine. The show was fine. The other thing I didn't like, and Ashley, you talked about this when we were off air, was the memory episode. The thing that they were trying to hit on was neuroplasticity. So when you put the brain in new environments, or you do things that you're not used to, it challenges your brain to form new connections. It's very proven thing, neuroplasticity. How they did it was just a bit odd. They just kind of threw him in the middle of a forest and had him navigate out with no navigation. That was kind of weird. I mean, I feel like you could have done a lot of other cooler things that would have. I don't think that what they were doing didn't help with neuroplasticity. I think that actually is very helpful, but they could have done things that are more applicable or something that you could do. Because I can't just be like, you know what I'm doing this weekend? Emily, blindfold me, throw me in the woods. We're gonna see if I can get home. Like I'm not doing that anytime soon. So it'd be cooler if they did other things because there are a lot of other ways to challenge neuroplasticity, but again, might not make for great TV. So I get why they did it. So it's not really a complaint necessarily, but I wish they would have talked more about like, because you could have done both. Be like, have the big challenge, but also like let's get more tactical about like little things you can do to develop more neuroplasticity in your brain. So
I did just it just kind of came to mind a common theme with it. They always had like usually a sort of indigenous culture that they talked about where that does something like this, and in this one it was all about it. Like the memory one, because they were talking about the Aboriginals in Australia, and then they're in the nature. It's on Disney, but it's a Nat Geo show, National Geographic.
True.
But that's kind of the undertone of why I think they injected all that stuff in it, because they do stuff that circle back to National Geographic graphic type content.
Good point. All right, number one favorite thing about it, Joe.
The end. They always have.
That it was over.
No. Each episode, like there might be a lot to go through, and they might see something ridiculous of like, I can't have this rope climb treadmill thing in my gym to go through, but they always had a takeaways. It's usually like what Chris will do, if he's doing it or not, who knows, but what Chris will do to help this thing that they just trained for, talk about this whole episode. So you get 2 to 3 easy takeaways at the end, even if you just watched it for entertainment. You just watch to the end, like, okay, now here's a little easy takeaway that I can surmise and apply of like, okay, you know what? I can end my day. I can end each of my showers with 30 seconds of cold water. Done. I don't need to go to Norway and jump in the ocean or some crap like that.
But we should. Yeah. Okay. That was awesome. That's very applicable, like, especially like with fasting episode and stuff. Ashley, what was your favorite thing?
Well, my quick pivot to another favorite thing is I actually liked the backstories of like the indigenous people or the other different cultures that they talked about. And it again highlighted for me again that we are just so comfortable here in America with so many different things. And for example, like the running Indian ladies in Mexico, where they have to run down the mountain to get their stuff, and it's an hour away and it's an hour run, and they're running in sandals. Like, I don't know. I really enjoyed that kind of stuff. Or the stories of where they basically like talked about what each culture did, and the one monk guy where his wife died and he had to overcome all that other stuff. I think those were really cool that they tied in there.
Yeah. So going back to what I opened with, my big picture favorite thing is just the fact that this is with Chris Hemsworth on Disney Plus, Nat Geo, like stuff that we have talked about for years is becoming mainstream. That's my ultimate favorite thing about it. Just because I don't care if we said it first or someone else said it first. That's irrelevant. I want all the good information to be out there because the world's in a pretty bad spot when it comes to health and longevity. So that's my ultimate favorite thing. But my actual favorite thing was the fact that we got through the entire 6 episodes and there was no nutrition. They didn't speak about it once.
That fasting, I guess. But
no, that's lack of nutrition. That's the absence of nutrition. So that was my favorite thing about it. And it also should highlight the fact that not even Disney, with all their experts and Chris Hemsworth, they didn't even want to touch nutrition. I guarantee they thought about it. They were like, well, let's talk about vegan or something. I bet Chris was probably like, nope, not going vegan or whatever. For some reason, they stayed away from nutrition because you can't definitively say this is the diet that will make you live longer. And so
plenty of documentaries have tried.
Yeah, but I feel like they realized that they
Yeah.
probably couldn't say which one was the best, and so they just steered away from trying to select a diet or whatever. So there's very little controversy in the things that they mentioned. So we didn't talk about it, but there's 6 episodes. It's stress, shock, fasting, strength, memory, and acceptance. Those were the 6 episodes. So stress, overcoming stress. Shock was about like cold and heat exposure. Fasting, everyone knows what fasting is. Strength, yeah, they did the rope climb, which actually made me want to do more rope climbs. I was like, they're talking about how rope climbs works every muscle in the body, and I was like, why am I not doing rope climbs? Like I got trees in my backyard. I could easily add this to my life.
What was cool and kind of pretty interesting, and also kind of funny about the strength episode is that they focused on endurance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because
strength
it
endurance.
basically highlighted that he was like kind of it kind of made him look like a gym rat, right? Like he just
He is a gym rat, like
right. But
that's what
he was like, I
funny.
don't like to run. I don't like to do this, So
that's what's funny about those bodies. Like Chris looks awesome, but Chris and I go for a run. Chris, I'll see you later. You know what I mean? Like that's not what he does. And you think that being in shape is like just, being in shape is being in shape, but it's not. Like you have to train very specifically for these things.
And when they went to the rowing lady, she basically said like, hey, you're great for lifting weights for these short stints, but you can't last very long for anything because he doesn't do any aerobic training. And that's kind of like what they try to do is like, in order for you to climb this rope, you need to do more aerobic training. So that was pretty interesting and kind of cool. And also just that, I think that's the episode where they highlighted all the ridiculous stuff that Ross Edgley has done. Besides, we all know he swam around the UK or Great Britain. I didn't know he did a friggin' marathon, or what was it, a triathlon with a tree stump on his back and 24 hours of rope climb and pulled a car for an entire marathon. Like ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
He needs a show.
Yes.
Or they just need to do part 2 and have a minute more. So that's it. We'll do our barbell ratings and then we'll move on to the Meet Yourself Saturday this week. Ashley, scale of 1 to 5 fractional plates allowed. What do you got?
I'll give it a 5.
All right, Joe.
Man, my initial thought was 4, but you're always going to make me like, why would you make it a 4? I don't know how.
You got to have a reason why you don't give it a good rating.
Because it's just hard to give a perfect rating on anything. So 4.5.
Okay, 4.5. That's good. I give it a 5, obviously. So pretty highly rated from the Garage Gym Athlete crew. Definitely go check it out. Really solid. Like I said, I watched it with my kids and it was perfectly fine. My oldest son is 10, just so you kind of know ages, and they were fine with it. The only episode that was, it was the last one, Acceptance, is about death. It's still fine to watch with your kids, but that was kind of like kind of eye-opening for them to a certain degree. But again, kid-friendly and good overall. But let's get into the Meet Yourself Saturday here. So what I'm going to do here is actually, again, playing with some fun new technology. I'm going to play the Meet Yourself Saturday. So me briefing it. If you're on the YouTube channel, you can actually watch it. You'll be able to listen to it here on the podcast. So let's get into it. It is Condition Me to the Grave.
Hey guys, Jerred Moon from Into 3 Fitness, and today we're talking about the workout Condition Me to the Grave. All right, guys, I'm coming at you with another Meet Yourself Saturday workout. What they are, super challenging workouts to make you more mentally tough and to test your grit and your willpower. And we have one for you today. It's called Condition Me to the Grave. Now, this workout will do absolutely that. It has that name for that reason. There's a lot of conditioning involved. It is a very long and grinding workout. It's not overly intense, but it is a grind. Very, very few athletes have ever completed this workout, mainly due to the fact that there is a time cap, but it's really challenging and I think it's gonna push you. All right, before we talk about the workout, let's talk about the equipment that you're gonna need. You're going to need a rower, an Airdyne, jump rope, and a space to run. Don't worry if you are a true garage gym athlete and have very minimal equipment. What you're going to need is a very light kettlebell or plate, a plyometric box, and then also a jump rope and space to run. If you're tackling this workout with machines, here's what it's going to look like. 100 calories on the rower, 100 calories on the Airdyne, then 100 double unders. If you don't have double unders yet, do double the amount of single unders. Then you're gonna run a mile, and then the whole workout stair steps from there. So you go down to 75 cal row, 75 cal Airdyne, 75 double unders, run a mile, 50 of everything, run a mile, 25 of everything, and then you are done. Now, let's talk about where to time cap yourself. If you really want to push yourself and you're at that competitor level of fitness, then I would say that you time cap yourself at 60 minutes and see how far, or if you can complete this workout in under 60 minutes. If you're not quite at that competitor level of fitness, then your time cap is going to be 40 minutes. Now, I do not expect many people to be able to finish this in 40 minutes, but see how much of this you can drill down. Now, this is for your safety. We put the time caps in place for your safety. If you want to push yourself beyond an hour, 2 hours, whatever it's going to take you, that's going to be up to you, but it goes beyond the scope of what I'm recommending here today. Now, if you're doing it without a machine, here's what the workout's going to look like. You're going to do 100 sumo deadlifts with anywhere between 10 to 20 pounds. And I said sumo deadlifts, not sumo deadlift high pull. If you come from the CrossFit world, you're probably going to think the best sub for rowing is a sumo deadlift high pull. We're only doing a sumo deadlift, so make sure you pay attention to that. And then the sub for Airdyne is going to be box step-ups, but it's going to be the same. 1 cal equals 1 repetition, so 100 would be 100 box step-ups. And then you are going to be doing double unders. If you don't have that movement, then you will do what I said earlier. You're going to double the amount of single unders to be able to complete that workout. And that's the workout, guys. Condition me to the grave. Good luck. Push yourself on this Meet Yourself Saturday workout. Please let me know if you have any questions. If you want more videos like this about garage gym.
All right. Young Jerred, so much energy.
I was about to be like, that's the most energetic I think I've ever seen you.
Well, it's not. It's really just video, Jerred. Nice to meet me.
Nice to meet me.
That's it. It's an Office reference. But yeah, so that is Condition Me to the Grave. This workout has actually sent me to the emergency room. I've talked about it before. So I was fine. I didn't, it was out of an overabundance of caution that I went. So you do need to be careful if you're really trying to finish and you're basically just operating in zone 4, zone 5 for like 40 minutes, maybe don't. I was trying to set a PR that day. So yeah, this workout is really hard to do. And we have a pacing card we normally share in the community. If you're out there, you can search for it. If you're in the Facebook group, just search pacing card for this workout. But tips, tricks, anything at all on this one? Joe, what do you have?
Actually, might, if I can fit it in, the weather's fine, try this one this week because I have all the equipment. And my thinking with this is because it's so long. I mean, it depends on what your goal is. If you're trying to finish, then you really have to look at the timesheet card and like do what you can to fit that. If you're just trying to see how far you can get and not completely crash, then you might want to monitor your heart rate and stay below 80% max heart rate for the first, the hundreds and the first mile. And then after that, see how much you can push yourself to like a max sustainable pace for the long time, but not like, don't jump on the Airdyne and see if you can do 175 calories as fast as you can. And then just like completely be dead for double unders. And you take 10 minutes to do 75 double unders kind of thing. So pace should be in the back of your mind, depending on where you're at and where you want to go. So set yourself a goal of what, it's like, okay, I want to get to the 50s. I want to finish the 50s. And that's my goal. So that should be what I'm going to attain to. And if you've done this before, then maybe your goal will be get farther than last time. And then maybe eventually finishing. So set your carrot, I guess I'll say, and then pace yourself according to that, but make sure it is like a far enough hard challenge to put yourself into.
Ashley?
I actually want to just know what female has finished this in an hour or under an hour. I really do, because I don't think I've ever
the archives or check out the
feel
stats
like
and team.
There's got to only be like 10 to 15 people in general that have finished this.
Yeah, because I've never been able to do that in the hour, even at the most like trained I was, or whatever you want to call it. But also, if you are substituting one of the movements, but you have the rest of the equipment, just only substitute the movement that you don't. So like say you don't have an Airdyne, substitute that movement and then row and jump rope. And you know what I mean? Like, don't do just the substituted version because you don't have one thing. Because I feel like the substituted version, I've definitely done that. Definitely finished that under.
Yeah, we always mention it, like it's way easier. And it's still a hard workout, but I mean, it's way easier to get under the time cap, should I say.
Correct. To make the time cap. Yeah, I would agree with you. But the 75s is where it's going to get mental, I feel like. I think we've talked about that multiple times. And so just kind of once you get over the humps of the 75s, it gets better, I promise. So just keep going.
Yeah. And I mean, I just want to encourage people more than anything else. I think if you're trying to finish it, you really have to follow the pacing card. There is no, let's just see where it goes. And and finishing it, unless you are like an elite endurance athlete who's like not even elite, like just a really good endurance athlete, and have come over to our programming. We have had a couple of those guys, and they finish it pretty easily, to be honest, because they're so conditioned. This is at the outer extent of garage gym athlete conditioning, because it is more, it's like high power output and it's long duration, so it's not easy to do. But words of encouragement, like when I invented this workout, I couldn't do it.
Right.
So, and I couldn't do it for like a year, I think it was. And I wasn't trying like every single week, but I think I tried like 2 or 3 times in 1 year, and each time I couldn't do it. And I was like, yeah, like did I actually throw down like an impossible workout? But I found out like 6 months after I released the workout, one of the guys in our programming did come from an endurance background. He did like 45 minutes or something stupid. And I was like, oh, okay, so definitely doable. So I have finished it multiple times now. And I have to follow the pacing card every single time. I can't just be like, well, yeah, maybe. And so you have to really be on top of things. And I forgot what it is, but I mean, I feel like even the miles are like in the 7s.
That's the thing that kills you, man.
Yeah. So like it's a challenging workout overall, but definitely like a solid goal to set for yourself. And like Joe said, like even when I was doing it that first year, when I was trying to complete it, like just like, yeah, I want to finish the 75s. I want to finish the 50s. I want to finish the 25s. Whatever it is, just set that as your goal and get there. Even if you call it a workout before the time cap is over, just like set a goal and then incrementally improve each time. I think it's the best thing that you can do and best expectation you can have for yourself. All right. Well, that's it for this one, Protein and Limitless. If you are a part of the community and you are listening to the end, we have a lot of new things going on in 2023. So possibly moving community platforms. We're playing around with new programming apps, a lot of new things coming in 2023. And we're really looking for a lot of your feedback. And so we'll be, sending out surveys, asking some questions in the group. So we really appreciate the community. If you guys could be responsive and, help us out in making some of these really big decisions for next year, we would appreciate it. But at the core, what we do is programming, and we do it really well. So whether you are one of our athletes, you don't expect that to change. If you're not one of our athletes and you want to be a part of the programming, you can do that at garagegymathlete.com. Sign up for a 14-day free trial. But that's it for this one, guys. Remember, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you. Athlete Podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Thanks for listening.